forever when I switch on or off the camera or the microphone.
There we go. It took 10 seconds, but I believe the recording has now started. Thank you for your patience. And Philippe, I was also saying I've posted some potentially interesting links, including to the running notes in the chat. And I'll hand the microphone over to you now.
No, it's don't hand the microphone over to me now, because I said I am in a train in transit and I cannot speak freely here. So I can jump in if need be, but I cannot lead the call today.
I see. Okay. Well, thank you for telling me. Let me go back to the notes. I would say the first order of business is to take a look at the minutes from our last meeting, March 28th. We've got the link in the chat. Does anybody have any objections to approving those minutes? Hearing no objections, I conclude the minutes have been approved. Next order of business, what would all of you like to put on the agenda today? Let's see, Jan, any items? Oh.
I'd like to discuss the roadmap, meaning the 1.0 draft.
Jan, I'm sorry, but I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Is it better now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay. I had the idea that we could discuss the milestone 1.0 minus draft, maybe.
Excellent, great idea. And Jan, I saw your message, nothing at the moment. Obviously, feel free to speak up during the meeting. Matt?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Steve, do you have anything you'd like to discuss?
No, I second Jan in discussing the roadmap, and I have just a kind of a brief update from the panel discussion at VaultCon.
And Philippe, anything you'd like to put on the agenda? I'll take that as a temporary no, at least. Speak up if anything occurs to you. And have I left anybody out? I don't think so. Okay. And as far as I can tell, there's nobody who's waiting to be admitted to the meeting. Thanks, Philippe. I see your message. Thank you. So, Jan, let's start with the milestones, which is something I might have reported on as well. But this was a good time to start talking about that. Would it be helpful if I gave a brief intro to what our initial thinking was on that? Or Jan, do you want to just jump in and take the lead on the discussion?
No, please give an introduction to that. I mean,
okay,
you did all the work, you know best.
Yeah, we currently, as of a few minutes ago, we have 199 open issues and PRs. I created a new set of milestones, a small proposed set last Thursday and Friday, and assigned them Thursday and Friday. Though there have been a number of issues and PRs that have come in since then. They don't have milestones yet. We already had roughly 6 milestones from, I think, 2017 and 2018 that were still open, and a few that had been closed. I've left those as is. Those are under something called, I think, milestone 1.0. As a result, the 3 new milestones I created were 1.0 dash, I forget, temporary or something like that, something to distinguish the proposed 1.0 from the existing 1.0. And then 1.0.1, anticipating patches to the 1.0 release. That's empty for the time being, as I would expect we'd want it to be for now. And And Jan's pasted the milestone page in the chat. Thanks, Jan. And then a 1.1. The basic separation I made initially late last week was what we, or at least I've been thinking of as core spec focused issues and PRs are in the 1.0 default, I think maybe I call it, but the 1.0 bucket. I think I put Go and Golang there because I know that and probably some other existing and new proposed type issues and PRs might really fall into the more immediate focus as well. But most of the 1.1 content is existing and proposed new types. And the idea was simply to create markers to start with, not thinking that this is going to be the way we end up, but just something for people to shoot at and improve.
I actually have a proposal for improvement. As far as understood, we will not standardize the Perl types, but only the core spec and verse spec. But let's focus on the core spec of Perl package URL. My proposal would be to remove every non-core spec related ticket from those milestones, since these are fast moving or slow moving. We don't care, and it's basically nothing that we actually work on, but that's a thing that the communities or the experts need to conclude, and it would probably save us a lot of time to just drop these things out, since
Yeah.
we're not standardizing them. This is just a proposal.
Yes, and if I could interrupt for a moment, I neglected to mention that our thinking had been that we would start talking in detail with the community about the milestones at next Wednesday's next Perl community meeting. No reason we can't do that now, but I've always thought of these Ecma meetings as more reporting the status and plans rather than the meat of the discussions. Obviously, this meeting will go wherever you all want it to go, but certainly we would want to get more feedback from the community about what remains of the types, if anything. I certainly agree that the types are not custom made to have the same sort of milestone priorities as the main focus of which is the core spec. But I would also anticipate that types will have a series of changes. Some of them will over time, and I really haven't given any thought myself to how we would handle those, whether those would be milestones converted to numeric versions or something less formal. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Is that something we should talk about now or wait until the community meeting, or both?
Well, I do think there's going to be the obvious scenario where people in the community really only care about their specific Perl types, because that's part of the community that they represent. So we do need to take that in consideration. I think this call is kind of the experts in terms of the core spec, and we just need to make an executive decision, would be my 2 cents.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on any aspects of the milestones? Good idea, bad idea, to be determined?
I love the idea. It helps us track the progress, focus on the important parts. Just
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, my thinking as well. Yes. Okay. we can come back to this if need be. Steve, it may be your turn next, because I think you're the only other person who had anything to report or discuss. I guess I could also try to give a brief summary of what has occurred in the last couple of weeks, but my main focus has been on the progress we've made through the issues and PRs, and in particular last Wednesday's community meeting. But Steve, let me turn the mic over to you, if you'd like.
Yeah, certainly. So this Thursday, yesterday, I guess it was now, I was invited to be part of a panel at VoneCon, which was hosted both in person and virtual. And I had originally planned to attend in person, but I had some conflicts that prevented me from doing so. Anyway, the panel was on identifiers, software identifiers specifically. And because of the nature of the conference, or the talks, the majority of folks were from vulnerability management perspective, not too much enterprise software, SAM or anything else, but primarily just vulnerability management. So that includes people with PCERT functions, folks from MITRE, CVE program, the National Vulnerability Database, etc. And overall, I think the questions that we received around Perl were good. There was a question about, like, well, why do we have to have 3 standards? I kind of equated it to a funnel where at the very top of the funnel, you got CPE. It's very broad in how it identifies things. In the middle of the funnel, where most organizations really want to be, is Perl, which has a lot more granularity. And then if you want to be very, very specific, you have Omnivore artifact IDs. But general, I think the audience had some general, what I would consider basic questions on Perl, and why we can't just settle on one identifier to rule them all. Why do we have to have multiples? I quickly diffused any kind of misconception that Perl was for open source software only. It's not. But in general, my takeaway from that conference, and I hope I addressed folks' questions, but my takeaway was that when we are creating the Ecma documentation, it is imperative that we have some introductory material that clearly describes the problem that Perl was designed to solve, and to address some of the other concerns, especially from like a inventory management perspective, or from a vulnerability management perspective, or these types of uh, uh, ways that people are getting introduced to Perl. So I think that work can likely be accomplished simultaneously while the group is working on more of the technical aspects of the core spec. So I will take a stab at that, and come back to this group with a draft for review at some point.
Great. Thank you, Steve. It's a great idea. Yes. I'm sure all of that information is, well, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I suspect the case is that all that information is buried and located deep within the bowels of the issues and PRs, and many of which have been closed since 2017. But I'm curious about the whole history myself as well. I think the only other item that we could talk about. I can give a brief, and it would be very brief summary of the recent progress. We've been spending a lot of time on some of the initial component-focused PRs. Qualifiers has been out there for a while, and it was more closely linked than some of the other components. I may have misspoken a second ago, but many of the PRs we've been focused on in the core spec work have been component focused, like scheme and type, which were pretty readily handled because they're much smaller than the others. But we had a very productive community meeting last Wednesday. Like the meetings, at least the 2 meetings before that, the 30-minute meeting went, I'd say, a full hour or so. Among other things, we were able to come to agreement and merge the qualifiers PR. There will be a little more work, I think, fine-tuning in nature for qualifiers, and I'm going to keep that issue open, but the PR has been closed. We were also able to reach agreement on most of what we've been talking about in the character encoding section, the percent encoding rules. And we also were able to merge that portion that we agreed on at the end of the meeting last Wednesday. And that's been succeeded by a new PR for what I think of as the fine-tuning work that I'm certain is to come. We currently have a default percent encoding requirement of, I think it must exclude the unreserved, the ASCII unreserved characters. I'm not sure which punctuation marks are included in that off the top of my head, but I think there are 4 or 5 of those as well. But putting those aside, all other ASCII characters and all non-ASCII characters other than the colon are currently going to be required to be percent encoded. There have been those who've raised objections or conflicting viewpoints in the issues and PRs, and so we'll hear from them, I'm sure. And I suspect that there are some characters for some implementations in some components that may also need to remain not percent encoded. That's what I think of as the fine-tuning to come. And there's been other progress both before, during, and after that meeting. Jan has been involved in a lot of it, and so have a number of Piotr and others as well. So we're slowly building up a head of steam, which is good to see. That's all that comes to mind, but I'm happy to take questions if anybody has questions. Hearing nothing, I assume that we have reached that point in the meeting where we can adjourn the meeting, but I will ask Steve and Philippe and Giannis and Jan just to confirm that if that's the case. I don't want to close the meeting prematurely. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Jan.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead then and stop the recording. Again, please bear with me while there we go. Stop recording.